Just so you guys know at home, the Arizona Wildcats can only fit 6 footballs on the turnover sword. We're going to talk to Justin Spears about if they need a whole lot more on Saturday. It's the AZ Wildcats podcast. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome on in, everybody, to the AZ Wildcats podcast, live from Studio K, presented by our friends at Circle K. I am Damon Fairall, otherwise known as Damon Dog. That is my guy, Kevin Thomas, otherwise known as Kevo Posts. And my guy, Derek Montilla from the PHNX D-Back Show, is currently standing outside of our Studio K right now, yelling about me maybe not, kind of ghosting him for lunch plans earlier. He'll get over it. Oh well, but
I could take the
living
fall
life
for
on a
that.
Thursday.
It's kind of my fault. It's kind of my fault in a way. You know what I mean? If I didn't get the lunch that I did, maybe you wouldn't have got the lunch that you did, and maybe Derek wouldn't be boo-hooing outside of our studio about what lunch we got.
I don't think it. I'm not going to put that on you, Kevin, because Derek actually mentioned Harumi to me before you got Harumi, and for all this is a lunch spot downtown. Very good. No free ads. But of course, I go down there. Our schedules just don't line up. I got a show I got to do at 2 p.m. If it's anyone's fault, it's the powers that be at PHNX Sports and All City Network. Derek, maybe you should be upset with Shane Diefenbach, Leah Merrill, Gregory Esposito,
Wow,
to name
full
a few.
Gregory is crazy.
I mean, I'm just saying. I didn't say, hey, the show's got to be at 2 p.m. today. I got to do what I got to do. I gotta make my living, Kevin. And the Wildcats are going to have to do what they have to do against the Weber State Wildcats on Saturday because, Kevin, it could get ugly. We're going to be previewing Weber State versus Arizona all day long on the Arizona Wildcat or on the AZ Wildcats podcast. We'll be doing it tomorrow as well on a Football Friday. And then, of course, we'll be gearing up for pregame and postgame show. Pregame show 30 minutes prior to kickoff. Postgame show 10 to 15 minutes after the clock hits 0. Kevin, how we living on a Thursday? Football in the air. Thursday night football starts tonight. Another big weekend of ball in the college ranks as well.
You know, football is fully back when you make a innocuous opinion in the first couple weeks of the season and you got 100,000 people telling you that you're every word in the book for stupid, but that's okay. Football is truly back. I'm excited about it.
Too.
Yeah, a lot of really nasty ones, but it's okay. Not all of them were nasty. But yeah, I'm excited that football is back tonight. Thursday night football has arrived, and we're just a couple more sleeps, 2 more sleeps indeed, away from Arizona taking on Weber State. Damon, and who better than to help us preview this matchup with Weber State than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Justin Spears. Justin, how are we doing today?
What's shaking, guys? How you doing?
Chilling as always, Justin. You know how it is. Obviously, big win for the Wildcats last week. I think, we all predicted that Arizona was going to get the best of Hawaii, but I don't know that we necessarily thought that the final scoreline looked like that. Just kind of what were your original takeaways from the big W from the Cats?
I think if you're an Arizona fan, you have to feel really encouraged by this because there was a lot left on the table offensively. I thought defensively they played great. They had 5 sacks, which is the most for the Wildcats since a triple overtime loss to USC in 2023. They also had 5 takeaways, which is the most since the Alamo Bowl in 2023. So when you're doing things that have not been done since the season that you won 10 games and had a very successful year, you're doing something right. So I thought defensively, Arizona really showed some encouraging signs. I mean, the fact that they kept Hawaii out of the end zone when there were opportunities for Hawaii to score, especially late in that game. The last interception by Jack Luttrell, usually in that scenario, some teams, they just allow the team to score and, okay, whatever, we're already blowing them out. It doesn't matter if they end up getting in the end zone, whatever. But the fact that they played 4 quarters, it doesn't matter who was in the game, that red line mantra that Brent Brennan and his staff preach every single day, 100% effort, 100% of the time. That right there was evident on Saturday against Hawaii. And Danny Gonzalez always said, you got to have 11 hats on the ball and get there with bad intentions. And then you also have to keep them out of the freaking end zone. And Arizona did all of that. I mean, even just like the hits, like Genesis Smith in that end zone in the first quarter or the first half, right? Like just laying the boom. Like that kind of stuff you didn't really see last year. So there's a lot of good things from this defense. And, the fact that the offense, Noah Fifita, I'm not going to say it was his worst performance passing the ball at Arizona, but as far as efficiency goes, certainly wasn't his best one. I think it was like 57% completion rate or something like that. It wasn't the best day passing wise for Noah Fifita, but also give him the benefit of the doubt because his top targets all night long were 3 freshmen. You had a redshirt freshman in Brandon Phelps. You had Isaiah Mizell. And if I'm being honest with you, I would have said that he's going to be a redshirt candidate. He still can, right? You could play 4 games in redshirt. But I wasn't expecting to see a lot of Isaiah Mizell week 1 against Hawaii. And then Gio Richardson as well was also getting in the mix. Chris Hudson was out. Chris Hunter only played the first 6 games of the game and then left. Trey Spivey had 1 catch for 27 yards. Those are the 3 guys that I fully expect to be Arizona starters at receiver. And then Luke Wysong had 1 uncharacteristic drop. Everything that was thrown his way in spring and in training camp, he always caught it. That on Saturday, a little uncharacteristic by him. But the fact that Noah Fifita's top targets were all freshmen, that's probably not going to happen this season. So I give him some benefit of the doubt there. Even though the passing attack wasn't as crisp and as efficient as you'd like it to be, the fact that Noah Fifita still was able to use his legs on multiple occasions, the fact that Arizona was able to have 4 rushers find the end zone, the passing game wasn't working, and so they relied on the run game, and that was very effective. So they left so much on the table offensively, and yet they still won by 34 points. It was really the first time, that I can remember, maybe since the Utah game, the home finale in 2023, where Arizona had a comfortable lead and you felt really good about it, right? Even last year, right? They put up 61 points against New Mexico, but they still also allow 39 points. And New Mexico was still kind of just right there. You felt like Arizona was going to win, but you didn't really feel comfortable about it. NAU last year, they only won 22-10. The fact that they won by 34 points and they were able to, put their backups in late in that game, that is a really good feeling if you're an Arizona fan. And it's going to get ugly this week. This Weber State team, they are not good. This is not a good team. They lost to James Madison 45-10. Their quarterback was like 10 for 24 passing through 3 picks in that game. If that guy's throwing 3 picks to James Madison, with all due respect to the Dukes, because I think they're, a decent program. But if Arizona had 5 takeaways against Hawaii, how many takeaways are they going to have against their upcoming opponent in Weber State? So this is going to be an ugly game, but this is also an opportunity for Arizona to really fine-tune some things, make some proper adjustments, and then go into that Kansas State week feeling pretty good.
And you mentioned, the wide receiver core, and we're going to get more into the Weber State matchup, and we're going to get more into what you see with the skill group guys. But part of what made last week's performance so impressive is what you didn't have a full group of, pass catchers for Noah Fifita to work with, and it still looked like a well-oiled machine in the first time out for Seth Doege's offense. And like you said, with Noah Fifita's numbers, there was a little bit left to be desired. But going into next week against Weber State, one name you certainly will not see out there is tight end Tyler Powell. I know you had a piece today about a season-ending leg injury that he had. What's the latest with Tyler Powell and what fans can expect from one of Arizona's tight ends?
Yeah, so unfortunately, Tyler Powell suffered a leg injury. I don't know if it was his knee or whatnot. I would guess, just based on the cast and the brace that I saw him wear, that it is a knee injury, but I'm not going to pretend that I'm a doctor here. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express, though, for those that get the reference. Anyways, so Tyler Powell, yeah, it was such a bad situation because he was out there for one play. Like, he got the Aaron Rodgers treatment, like ran out there and then left the game with a really bad injury, and it was short-lived. And it's just so disappointing because Tyler Powell was in line to be Arizona starter like Arizona's most productive tight end. I mean, Kean Burnett, we could still see him become the Kean Burnett that we thought he was going to be, right? Like there's still a chance that Kean Burnett turns out to be a great tight end, but Tyler Powell had such a great offseason, had a great spring, had a great training camp, was really that guy that established himself as one of the top route runners in that tight end group, and is also, big enough to where he can be one of those blockers. And they were expecting a big season out of Tyler Powell. I still think that when he comes back healthy next season, he's going to be a great tight end in that room for the Wildcats. And it's just unfortunate, man. It really is, because he was supposed to be a guy that was going to have a breakout year. But now that he is out for the year with that leg injury, now maybe it's Kean Burnett. Brent Brennan said that there's a chance that Kean Burnett does play this week against Weber State. And then they also have Sam Olsen, who isn't really, I guess, the most appealing tight end of that group, right? But he's also an absolute technician when it comes to route running. And, he doesn't have the flashy speed or anything like that, but he can get open. He can, find ways to get open. And there were a handful of times in that game last week against Hawaii where Sam Olsen was open and Noah Fifita missed the throw, or he was looking somewhere else and found the other connection. So I think that Sam Olsen is going to have another solid year this year. And then maybe we'll see more out of Cameron Barmore, the transfer from Mercyhurst, who was really a big body receiver at Mercyhurst before he transferred. So he's got the skills. He's got the body frame. He's got the skills to be a really good pass catcher for Arizona. And he's one of those FCS players that when they transfer to Arizona, kind of MIA in the spring, you didn't really see a lot out of Cameron Barmore. And that was the same deal with Malachi Bailey, the defensive end transfer from Alcorn State. I mean, these guys, they come over, and that's just a hard transition going from FCS to Power 4. And for guys like Malachi Bailey, it's funny, Danny Gonzalez had a story that he shared with us in the press conference. And, he told Malachi Bailey, who had 28 sacks at Alcorn State, and he put up insane numbers when he was down there at Alcorn. But Danny Gonzalez told him, you can enter the transfer portal and find somewhere else to go, or you can stay here and really prove your worth and prove to me that I'm wrong, because I'm going to be honest, you were kind of disappointing in the spring. Now, if you want these opportunities that you want to have, then you need to really step up in training camp. And Malachi Bailey said, I ain't going anywhere. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to prove you wrong. And I think that's really cool, right? In today's day and age in college athletics, it's so easy to just throw up the deuces, enter the portal, and then that's the last you'll ever hear from me. But the fact that Malachi Bailey stayed at Arizona and was like, I'm going to prove myself, and has become one of Arizona's top run-stopping, pass-rushing defensive linemen, that's a solid thing for Arizona. And I think with Cameron Barmore, I'm not going to sit there and say that the tight ends coach Josh Miller was like, hey, Cameron Barmore, you kind of stunk in the spring. You can enter the portal or you can stay here. They were really high on Cameron Barmore when they first got him. And they were just like, hey, stay patient with this guy. He could end up becoming something. And sure enough, he got more settled and looks like a solid option at tight end for Arizona. Like I said, he's a former wide receiver, so he has the ball skills and everything like that. But just figuring out the Power 4 speed and adjusting to the offense, it definitely took some time from Cameron Barmore. And now with Tyler Powell out of the mix this season, Cameron Barmore, he moves up one spot in that pecking order, and he should be a guy that's heavily involved in the mix. And then, they have Caden Luke, the former fullback, a.k.a. Big Red. I don't know how much he's going to play this season. They also have Tyler Mustaine, the walk-on from Push Ridge. Kellen Ford is another guy. He's a true freshman, but, he was out last week, was not even in pads at all. So I don't know what's going on there. But as far as the Tyler Powell replacements, look for Kean Burnett and also Cameron Barmore. Look for those two guys to really shoulder the responsibilities.
We talked a little bit in the offseason kind of about the profiling of the different types of tight ends that they have. And it, excuse me, it seems like to me, in my perspective at least, Kean Burnett is a little bit more of a kind of a vertical threat. If we're playing college football 26, maybe like that's kind of the player archetype.
I have more on that later, by the way.
Sam Olsen, maybe the route runner, as Justin said. Cameron Barmore, like a red zone threat, with his size and jumping ability. Is there anyone that is kind of a like for like with Tyler Powell or can replace his blocking necessarily? Because it seemed like to me that he was almost the unicorn of the group in terms of his ability to get as an inline blocker. I know his brother was a big time offensive lineman recruit, so he definitely has the blocking chops in his family tree as well. Like, did Arizona just lose a decent component of their offense in terms of what they can do from a blocking perspective at tight end?
No doubt. And I think that, we didn't really see Tyler Powell play this season, right? He got into the game a handful of times last year. He appeared in every single game last year, but he had 5 catches for 40 yards. But he was also really one of the backups, right? Because you still had Sam Olsen there. Kean Burnett, I know he was banged up throughout most of the year, but he was above Tyler Powell. So we didn't really see what Tyler Powell's role could be in this offense in games. Like, we saw it in training camp, and he had a lot of good stuff, was a really good blocker, really good pass catcher. So, yeah, I agree with you, man. Like, as far as like all the traits that you would like to see out of a high-level tight end, Tyler Powell has all of that. I mean, he's 6'7", 6'8", like he's tall, and not just tall, but he's got the frame to go along with that. So, yeah, this is a big loss for Arizona. But if Kean Burnett can somehow live up to the expectations that we placed on him when he first got to Arizona, and I think with, the fact that, tight ends coach Matt Atkins is not there anymore, and, they have a new guy in Josh Miller, and Josh Miller is a great tight ends coach. I mean, Seth Doege said, there aren't many people that I would stand on the table for and defend their job and their life. I will do that for Josh Miller.
I would do that for Seth Doege, which means I think in succession means that I would also do that for Josh Miller.
Yes. A friend of Seth Doege is a friend of Damon Fairall.
Correct.
Right? So Josh Miller is a guy that is, who's been a part of the Doege tree, if you will, right? Like, if Doege becomes a head coach, it wouldn't surprise me if Josh Miller is a part of that staff. And so, yeah, I think that with new coaching, with a new offensive mind, because when Kean Burnett first got to Arizona, you had Jed Fish, you had Jordan Powell, like, these are good coaches, right? But he was also an underclassman. And then he becomes a junior, and along with injuries, I doubt the coaching a little bit. I think, those guys are solid dudes, but I think there was a reason why Kean Burnett decided to enter the portal and then transfers back to Arizona. So I think with new coaching, being healthy, a new system that complements him, I think you might see Kean Burnett take that next step. But he's got to stay healthy, man. That's his biggest thing. There's a reason why he didn't play last week, and so many people are asking about Kean Burnett. Like, what's going on with Kean? What happened? I'm like, injury in training camp. Now I can talk about it. For weeks, I couldn't say anything because of, gamesmanship and whatnot. But now that it's very clear that Kean Burnett did not play on Saturday, so I could just tell you guys, yeah, he got a little bit banged up in training camp. I don't know what the timetable is like for Kean Burnett or, when he's going to return, but Brent Brennan said there's a chance that he returns this week against Weber State. I would imagine maybe he returns this week. Maybe he returns next week. I would hope that he's able to return by the time that Arizona plays against Kansas State. But there's also another thing, too, that my colleague Michael Lev actually pointed out, and I think it's a fair assessment. There's a possibility that I wouldn't say keep guys out, but they're more cautious about injuries after Kansas State. Because if you think about it, the Kansas State game doesn't count towards the Big 12 record. So Arizona could still, even with the loss to Kansas State, they still could conceivably win the Big 12 championship and be in that title conversation. And then after the Kansas State game, you've got a bye week. So for some of these guys that are, on the fence of coming back, maybe you just get through the Kansas State game, go into that bye week, and then you have a big time matchup against Iowa State in Ames. Maybe that's when you bring out every single guy and you have a full team. So just something to keep in mind. I would imagine that, they're going to have a lot of guys available for Kansas State, but when you look at that bye week right after it, for some players, maybe you do hold them out. I don't know.
Talking about the availability of certain players that, should be fine for the remainder of the season, but did not really have many snaps in the first matchup against Hawaii. Chris Hunter and Chris Hudson, do we have any updates as to their timetable for, getting back to fully being out there every week?
Yeah, I would imagine that Chris Hunter is a guy that plays this week. Now, how many snaps do these guys play? I don't know, just because I think that Arizona, they are such a superior team compared to Weber State. Like, you can honestly, and it won't happen, right? Because Arizona, they want to win ball games and they want to fine tune things, get ready for Kansas State. But they could honestly not start Noah Fifita. They could start Braden Locke this game and still win. Totally. They could start a lot of backups and younger players and still figure out a way to win this game. Like, Weber State is not a good team. They're not good. So this is one of those typical tune-up games where you have the other opponent on the other side in Kansas State. But that's another thing too, is you can't completely overlook your opponent, because you know what? Arizona did that last year, and they barely beat NAU 22-10. And even Alonzo Carter, the running backs coach for Arizona, he said that last year, they were feeling good about New Mexico. And then that game against NAU, it did not feel good. They want to make sure when they win ball games, they feel good about it. So they're going to put all their chips on the table for this game for guys who are available. But, for certain injuries, guys like Chris Hudson, do you just decide to keep them out for another week? So I don't have any updates on those guys. And it's just a kind of a tricky situation, just because Weber State is just not a good team. And then you have that big game against Kansas State. So I'll be curious to see the unofficial injury report. The unofficial injury report is my eyes about an hour and a half before a game. That's the injury report. We won't get injury reports until we get into Big 12 play.
Personally, I kind of hope that these guys get a little bit of run, and especially a guy like Kean Burnett, who seemingly has missed so much time over the last few seasons here in terms of like when he is truly fully a participant in practice and games. I think that this is a good opportunity to get these guys' feet wet in a environment, in a game that's not going to be the most high level competition. Like, you could probably still go like 85, 90% and get away with it in this type of game. And so I feel like it could be good for these guys in terms of just revving themselves up for a really important game for bowl eligibility, in my opinion, at least, in that K-State game the week after. But like you said, Justin, that, maybe they kind of put all they keep being conservative here with injuries until after conference play is over. Or non-conference play is over, and as they gear up for Iowa State. I want to stick on those receivers for a second. Chris Hudson, Chris Hunter are kind of our picks to be, the leading receivers of the group. Trey Spivey makes a really nice play early on in the game, and as you mentioned, Luke Wysong, like, he makes I think one catch, right, but also very uncharacteristic drop. Those are kind of the front runners, even Nunu Watley in that group. But it was the Isaiah Mizels, the Brandon Phelpses, the Gio Richardsons that seemed to get a ton of playing time against Hawaii. And I know that you kind of were highlighting throughout camp that these freshman wide receivers shouldn't be slept on. Like, these guys are making plays and seemingly fitting right in, really early on in their tenures at Arizona. I know Brandon Phelps had that 1 year of kind of, revving up as a redshirt, but what have you seen from those three guys in particular, this freshman group? And do you expect them to continue to get playing time once some of the other receivers come back? Or do you think that Arizona will kind of shelf those guys, once they get maybe more of the presumed starters back on the field?
I don't think they will shelf a guy like Brandon Phelps just because Brandon Phelps was shelved last year, right? He can't redshirt anymore. He already redshirted. So are you going to waste a year of eligibility for this guy, or are you going to actually play him? And so I think that Brandon Phelps will continue to get more reps. And then as far as Gio Richardson and Isaiah Mizell, I could totally see these guys having a mainstay role in the offense. And Bobby Wade, Arizona's receivers coach, he said that he felt really good about the top 6 receivers. And you mentioned the 5 already, the 5 upperclassmen, the veterans, right? But who's that 6th guy? And so I think that it could be by committee. And I also think that maybe this time right now in non-conference play, it's an opportunity for those younger guys to really show off, hey, are you game ready? When, it's cool that you can make plays in practice and everything, but when the live bullets hit, are you going to be ready to go? And Jeremiah Patterson, I don't mean to hate on him right now, but, last year, I thought he was the next Jacob Cowan in training camp, right? Like he was rocking the number 2 jersey. He was creating separation against Arizona's starting defensive backs. I mean, he looked like he was going to be Arizona's second best wide receiver behind T-Mac. And then what happened in the receiving game last year, right? And so, and don't sleep on Jeremiah Patterson. He's still a guy that's in the mix. Great punt returner too. I thought his first punt return against Hawaii was perfect sequence football, right? Arizona, they forced a 3 and out. Jeremiah Patterson has that nice punt return. And then the offense on a shortened field, they scored a touchdown with Kedrick Reesano. It's perfect complementary football, defense, special teams, offense. You love to see it. But don't sleep on Jeremiah Patterson. But as far as those younger players go, the cool thing about this opportunity now is that they can show off why they can play at this level, at this age, right? They're very young, but they can still contribute. And I thought Isaiah Mizell had a lot of promise. There were some moments where you could definitely tell he was a freshman, right? Like there was one ball that Noah threw to him. It was a little high. Don't get me wrong. That was definitely a catch that T-Mac would make, but it was right there in Isaiah Mizell's hands, and it went right off his fingertips. So, freshman is still going to, learn as he gets more experience. But the cool thing about guys like Isaiah Mizell and Gio Richardson is that they can play in 4 games this year and still redshirt. So they can still get all of that experience and get those reps. There's nothing like game reps. So they could still get all of that and still redshirt. But based off of what I saw in training camp, based off of what I saw Saturday with Isaiah Mizell, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that both of those guys can help out Arizona's offense.
Yeah, and one of the groups I was most impressed with in terms of helping out the offense is the running back core as of last week. Quincy Craig, I feel like surprised a lot of people compared to what they expected him to produce this upcoming season.
Maybe not our guy Justin Spears, though, because he was hammering the Quincy Craig drum all offseason.
True. No, indeed he was. Most people, however, were banging on the Ishmael Mahdi drum, and that drum line was pretty quiet on Saturday, Justin. So can you maybe explain a little bit of the Mahdi usage? Were you surprised at the lack of Ishmael Mahdi on Saturday? And what did you make of the rest of the running backs like Kedrick Reesano and Quincy Craig?
Well, I told you guys. I told you about Quincy Craig. You guys didn't believe me. Oh, shoot. As my dogs are, they agree with me. They agree with me that Quincy Craig was that guy. They're echoing exactly what I've been telling you guys all along. Hold on.
All the dogs love Quincy Craig. Damon dog, Justin's dogs, you name it, man.
My dog also loves Quincy Craig.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, known Quincy Craig fan, super fan.
Indeed. Also known Luke Wysong fan as well as my dog, as he is the Heisman winner in my CFP 26 simulation, which we can get to at the end of the show. But
oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, going back to what I was saying, I do want you to bring that up because Luke Wysong won the Heisman. Interesting. Shout out to my ginger brother, by the way. He might be Carson Palmer won a Heisman. I was going to say he might be the first ginger to ever win a Heisman.
Does Luke Wysong is blonde, correct?
No, I'm pretty sure he's got red hair, right?
I mean, you would know better than I, but I feel like whenever I've seen him, I feel like he looks blonde to me, but I haven't
definitely thought blonde.
I haven't looked at the follicles that deep. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I could see a little ginger in it, but anyways.
Uncle Ben, please feel free to chime in. Uncle Ben Wysong, if you're here in the chat, let us know.
But yeah, I think that the running backs, man, they were very impressive over the weekend. I think that Quincy Craig, we talk about him being a pass catching running back, right? Because he was a receiver at Mater Dei, played a lot of receiver, or he was a pass catcher at Portland State. But I thought his patient runs and what he did as a running back, I thought was very impressive. I mean, that 54-yard touchdown run was awesome. And great blocking, by the way. Ty Buchanan and Michael Wooten both pulling on the left side, sealing off that edge, and then it opened up a gap right up the middle for Quincy Craig to break out for a 54-yard run. That was great football right there. And that was something that we really didn't see a whole lot of last year. But Quincy Craig had 125 yards, which is the most since last year when he ran for like 134 against Northern Colorado, I believe. So it was a big game for Quincy Craig. Kedrick Reesano started the night. And, so many people have asked me, like, what up with Ismail Mahdi? What happened with him? And honestly, I think it was just they rode the hot hand. Like Quincy Craig he had no issues running against Hawaii's defense. Kedrick Reesano had a 14-yard touchdown to start the game. Like, those two running backs were solid. And, I'm not saying that this is the case, but, if you can not show off as much, right? Because Kansas State's always watching. Those other teams that you're going to play in the Big 12, they're always watching. If you can limit yourself as much as possible and then unleash Ismail later on, that is good for Arizona. So I know people are like, what the hell happened to Ismail Mahdi? He was supposed to be good. And it's like, it's just game one. He's still a really good running back. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up becoming the starter at the end of the day. But I think Ismail Mahdi is going to be maybe one of Arizona's best offensive players. I think, when it's all said and done, he could lead the team in rushing. So don't panic. It's just one game. He's a really good running back, really dynamic, has great speed, maybe the fastest running back that the Wildcats have. So, yeah, I wouldn't look too much into that.
Yeah, I definitely think that it stems a lot more from Ismail Mahdi being the big name of this group. Kedrick Reesano, transferring after his freshman year at an SEC program, but didn't do a whole lot there. Quincy Craig, wasn't a huge name out of Portland State. People know who Ismail Mahdi is. He has the high NCAA rating in the video game. Like, he's a well-known player, and I think that's what is surprising to some. So, Justin, based off of your, being out there at spring and fall camps, that the way that the running backs were rotated didn't necessarily surprise you too much, seeing Ismail Mahdi kind of be the third guy?
No. Now, I did think that he was going to have like a Quincy Craig type of game. Like, if you were to tell me, hey, one of these running backs is going to have over 100 yards on 7 carries and a touchdown, including a 54-yard run, I would have put my money on Ismail Mahdi. But like I said, they rode the hot hand. Kedrick Reesano had a solid game. Quincy Craig was the best running back of the night. Just keep feeding Q. Keep feeding the guy that's getting you big runs. So, yeah, I don't know what the rotation is going to look like against Weber State, but, I don't think you're going to see too much of those running backs because they're going to get to a point where they're going to be able to put in freshmen and younger players. So you're going to see guys like Wesley Yarbrough, the freshman from Houston, Cornelius Warren III. He's back from injury. I would expect him to maybe get some run on Saturday. And, that's the cool thing, like I mentioned earlier, is that, Arizona, these guys can play 4 games and still redshirt. But it's just great experience. It's valuable experience to get out there and experience that game. Those 3 running backs that we just mentioned, Quincy Craig, Ismail Mahdi, Kedrick Reesano, those are going to be your 3-headed dogs at the running back spot. But, sometimes injuries happen. Sometimes guys get banged up. You need to have running backs available. And so I think the experience that Wesley Yarbrough, Cornelius Warren, the experience that they can gain from playing in the second half against Weber State, I think will pay off in the long run for Arizona.
Yeah, we're going to get to break here in a second, but Justin, real quick before we do, we debuted our hot take segment yesterday on the show where Arizona fans and Kevin chimed in with their hot takes on the football program and what they saw after week 1. I chimed in with my hot take on the show. I kept it for the the live stream here, and I said, I think after 1 week, I'm going to go ahead. My hot take: Quincy Craig, rushing plus receiving yards combined, leads the running back room this season. After 1 week, I'm already saying that. How do you feel about that take as the leader of Quincy Craig FC?
Dude, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. I mean, if we're adding up receiving yards and rushing yards, no doubt. And I think that there will be, a point in time where we see Quincy Craig catch a screen pass or something like that and just take it to the house. So between receiving touchdowns, rushing yards, receiving yards, when it's all said and done, I'm right there with you, man. I think that Quincy Craig will have the most.
Damon and Justin in on this take. No one else is allowed. We're not accepting any other refugees onto this island. But
no longer accepting new applicants.
No, absolutely not. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we saw from the coaching staff as well as the defense in this week 1 matchup versus Hawaii, and then how the Wildcats can truly win their week 2 matchup against Weber State. We'll get into that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast.
And let me talk to you about our friends over at Monarch Money. It was just the first of the month very recently, in fact, less than 3 days ago. And so I know that the finances have been adjusted as you're trying to pay the bills. And one of the best ways to track your finances every month of the year, not just in September, is Monarch Money. Monarch Money is a personal finance tool that I use all the time. It helps me track my expenditures, my income, my expenses, things like that. It also helps me set and smash goals because Monarch Money, when you go on the app, you can link one of your accounts to a goal, and any money you put in or take out of that account will be updated in the app. So you know exactly how much money you're saving towards, I don't know, Arizona football national championship tickets. I don't know. Who knows? You can, help save money with our friends over at Monarch Money. Checking finances with a partner, with, yourself. If you're trying to maximize your investments, Monarch Money is the way to go. It is built for people with busy lives like me, like Damon. If you put off organizing your finances, you put it off for too long, Monarch Money is for you. Money can help, keep you, it can't buy happiness, but it can buy freedom. And so why would you not want to keep more freedom in your pocket here in the Freedom State? Don't let this financial opportunity slip through your hands. Use code PHNX at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year of Monarch Money services. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com using promo code PHNX.
Kevin, it is football season, and that means that our PHNX Cardinals watch parties that are going to be going on at Gila River Resorts and Casinos are back in full effect. For every away game, Bo, Johnny, Britton Golden, the PHNX Cardinals crew is going to be out there hanging out with the people, watching football out there at the Upper Deck Kitchen and Bar, one of the many fine dining establishments at Gila River Resorts and Casinos locations. That happens to be at Wild Horse Pass, where they also happen to have the largest sports book in the state of Arizona, Kevin. No better place to bet and watch football. It's just so great out there at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. I love their live table games and slots. They have a great casino floor. Reminds you of being in Vegas without that Vegas smell, without that Vegas drive. It's all the good parts of Vegas without actually having to take those negatives and those cons into account as well. 4 Valley locations all across the Valley. Go check out which one is closest to you. I'm a Wild Horse Pass man myself. Kevin, a little bit more of a V-Kiva guy these days. But guys, Gila River Resorts and Casinos, the only place to do a staycation in Arizona, the only place to hang out and stay at if you're traveling from out of town, maybe to watch a sporting event. And there's some locations right off the freeway there, so they make it nice and convenient. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playathgila.com for more details.
My girlfriend is on a trip to San Diego right now, and I told her, I was like, I guess I'm just going to spend all my time at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. And she said, with whose money are you doing this? And I said, well, they have all the options from high scale to low scale because I do me, you do you. That's what I'm going to be doing this weekend, me doing me.
I'm hitting the low-min tables. No big
deal. You get it.
No big deal. But, Justin, before we move on to the defense real quick, I did want to talk about Seth Doege and the coaching on offense. You kind of referenced it earlier. It seems like you think that maybe the training wheels were somewhat on the offense, just in terms of not trying to show their full hand and really unleash Noah Fifita as we saw. Because and I think that I've been saying consistently, the first half score line in particular for me was a lot closer than maybe the actual score suggested. Like I very much felt Hawaii was in that game. Fifita made some great plays with his feet when he needed to. We didn't really see as much from an arm standpoint. Did you see the training wheels on this offense? And do you think that we'll continue to see that against an even more inferior opponent in Weber State this week?
Yeah, I think that the offense was kind of more tailored towards running the football. And I mean, I get it because you have a really good batch of running backs. And then you also don't want to expose a little too much, right? You don't want to show off everything. And the coaches, I mean, they'll never admit that. But, in game one, Brent Brennan also mentioned that Arizona had the bar menu, right? They were very limited when it came to play calling. They knew that they could dive into more plays, but they wanted to kind of keep it more basic. And so I think there was a little bit of that to Arizona's maybe passing attack struggling. But I also think the fact that Chris Hudson wasn't available, Chris Hunter was out after 6 plays. Like so many receivers and pass catchers they just weren't available. So what do? Okay, you rely on your run game. You could see what these freshman receivers can do. And that's exactly what happened. And that's what I said at the start of the podcast. The fact that Noah Fifita was inefficient. Now, some of the drops or incomplete passes were because of drop passes, right? I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, Noah Fifita played an awful game. I mean, he really didn't. There were some drop passes. There was, some timing issues, but that's going to resolve over time when you play in an offense that has good distribution, right? Last year it was all about finding T-Mac. Now it's finding all of your reads, all your wide receivers. And Brent Brennan said after the game that Noah was scanning a little bit too much. And they are working on that this week. And I'm really curious how that's going to look coming up against Weber State. So, yeah, I don't know. The way I kind of look at this game coming up, I look at it, it's almost like NFL preseason. Like you're going to see the starters and the faces of the program early on in the game. And then I think as that lead just grows, you're going to see those guys exit the game. And you're going to see more of these younger players get involved. But I thought the coaching and the play calling, I thought was excellent. I really did. I thought that Seth Doege showed that he is a really good play caller. And I think it was just really good coaching all across the board, right? Seth Doege, I thought, had a solid game plan. And, I mean, they only ran 56 plays, and yet they won by 34 points because they were taking the ball away a lot. They had 5 takeaways, and then they converted those takeaways into 23 points. So, yes, Arizona's offense wasn't flashy, but you still got the job done. You still put the ball in the end zone, which is a big problem last year. So, yes, there were some things that Arizona needs to work on, but 34-point win, despite the passing game not being as effective as it could have been, I thought was really good. And then defensively, Danny Gonzalez had an absolute just masterclass performance. I mean, what he did to really make Micah Alajado's life hell, I thought was awesome. Because they smell blood in the water, man. They were like, this guy's hobbled. He hasn't thrown an interception in a while, right? Since his junior year of high school.
Since 2022.
Since 2022, right? It'd been like over 1,300 days since Micah Alajado threw an interception. And then they realized, okay, well, this guy is hobbled. Let's get to him. Let's just suffocate the hell out of him and make him throw ill-advised passes. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So defense was great. Special teams, they could work on some things, right? There was I think a PAT where the snap was high and they tried to roll out and, get the 2-point conversion and it failed. So there were some hiccups for special teams, but Michael Salgado Medina made a 52-yard field goal, looked pretty solid as Arizona's starting place kicker. Punting, there were a couple of very close calls. One of them was because of protection. The other one was because of Michael Salgado Medina's kind of delayed get off, if you will. And so special teams, I thought, there were some hiccups, but I thought all in all, between all three phases of the game, I thought Arizona had a solid game plan.
Yeah, I remember specifically that punt that you're referencing in particular, Justin. And that was a moment where I'm talking about, where I'm saying that I felt like that first half scoreline was almost like you're a play or two away, a turnover from Hawaii on Arizona's part of the field and a blocked punt potentially from that game being almost around a tie game or maybe even a slight Hawaii lead at halftime. So I don't know. That's where I was like, maybe the first half wasn't what I wanted to see, but that second half is when we saw that defense in particular really lock in. And they weren't allowing, in my opinion, at least, a lot of the run stuff that they were allowing early on in the game. Like I thought, Hawaii is a pretty putrid run offense, and they were still running the ball fairly effectively in the first half. Is there any concern there from your standpoint at all, Justin, that Hawaii, who's on paper a bad run offense, was running at about a 4.5 yard per carry clip against a defense that is in obviously a much higher caliber conference?
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Damon, because looking at Arizona's defense, they gave up a couple of field goals in that first half, and then they pitched a shutout in the second half. Right? If you look at Hawaii's drives in the second half, it's like punt, interception, fumble, turnover on downs. Like it's just the drives for Hawaii did not end positively for them. And that's because of the adjustments that Arizona made at halftime going into the second half. And then, when Hawaii is knocking on the door to score and you come up with that big play, and Gavin Hunter had maybe my favorite sequence of the whole night, because he's starting in place of Traydon Stukes. And Traydon Stukes, who, by the way, could play this week, they could wait until Kansas State. We don't know. And the one thing that Danny Gonzalez did say was that Traydon could have played on Saturday. But because Gavin Hunter has been so impressive, they're like, hey, no, Traydon, like, take all the time you need, man. This Gavin Hunter kid, he is rocking and rolling. He's really good. We're going to rely on this guy. And Gavin Hunter started that game on Saturday and was pretty solid. And then he got into some trouble in the second half. Gave up a big play, I think on a fourth down, if I'm not mistaken. It was like a big 27-yard completion or something like that. And Hawaii got inside the red zone. And then the following play, Gavin Hunter gets flagged for passing interference. So you got a twofer. You gave up a big play and you get flagged for passing interference. And then the following play is when he had the interception in the end zone. And he didn't wilt. He didn't hang his head after the big play in the passing interference call. He didn't get bitter. He got better. And he got into a position to where he couldn't make that play. You like that bar, Kevin? I wish I could take credit for that, but I learned that from Full Swing on Netflix. Great docuseries, by the way, for all the golf fans out there. But
I somehow believe that Full Swing on Netflix was not also the first place that said, don't be bitter, be better.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's still a bar, man. Still an absolute bar. But my point being, he came up with that big play when he could have hung his head. And he didn't allow a couple of bad plays to just snowball. Where last year, it felt like one bad thing turned into a million bad things for Arizona. So they learned from their mistakes. They got better in game. They made the proper adjustments. And that's a good sign for Arizona.
Yeah, this defense definitely felt like they in the second half kind of just buckled up and said that this team is not going to score another point on us and that we're just going to inflict our will on them. I know Kevin was interested in this question. How many turnover swords are we going to see over the course of a season? Because, I mean, this team is averaging five inflated footballs or deflated footballs, I should say, a game right now.
And another follow-up question to that is, when you add more swords, are you getting more physical blades, or are you just adding balls?
And is there an effect eventually where you end up hurting the program by having to pay for so many footballs, like on a graph? Like there's almost an apex. You want to have these many turnovers exactly to most get the recruiting benefit of the turnover sword without hurting the program financially, having deflated 300 footballs over the course of a season.
And is it actually a player safety issue? How sharp is the sword? And should they even be handling it?
Many sword questions.
So what you're saying is that OSHA needs to get involved, right, with college football in the Arizona Wildcats football program.
Pablo Torre finds out.
Dude, he's like the investigative journalist of the year, man. I love Pablo Torre. But, by the way, speaking of the turnover sword, really cool story how all that happened. So a couple years ago, Johnny Nansen came over from USC or UCLA. And he said when he was at USC, they had the turnover sword. I want to do that at Arizona. And he told director of football operations, Lauren Vossler. And Vossler was like, okay, but what's the connection between the sword and the Wildcats, the sword in Arizona? You can make that connection with USC because they're the Trojans. What can we do with this? And they started to workshop ideas. They're like, oh, I got it. Let's make it a saguaro cactus that's pointy, and we stab the footballs with it. And I'll never forget when they first brought it out. It was during the 2022 season. I think they first debuted it against North Dakota State, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think the following week is when they played against Mississippi State, when they came down here. And Mississippi State was not happy with Arizona because they turned over the football a few times, and Arizona would actually take their footballs and puncture them. And you're ruining their footballs. Like, they're traveling with them. They have a certain amount of footballs that they can use. They can't just go into the equipment closet and get a bunch of footballs out there. So, yeah, Mississippi State was not the biggest fan of the turnover sword in 2022, but it turned into this thing where, well, I think they actually had their U of A had their own footballs like on the sideline, just off to the side, so they can not piss off the opponents. I don't know if they still do that or if they actually take the actual football, but who cares? If you're going to get mad about the turnover sword, here's a simple way. Don't turn over the football, right? Like, if you wanted to preserve your footballs, well, don't give it to the defense. Don't give it to the opposition. But I think the turnover sword has become such a cool thing in college football, right? And they introduced it at a time when everyone had a turnover prop, right? It was either, the turnover slot machine at UNLV, the turnover chain at Miami.
Slot machine.
Yeah, the slot machine's awesome, man.
Chainsaw. The turnover chainsaw was pretty.
Yes.
That was pretty cool.
Was that Oregon State?
Yeah,
they did that. The turnover chainsaw is awesome, but the turnover sword is now an important part of the fabric of Arizona football, and it's so important now that they added it to the College Football 26 video game. And Lauren Vossler talked to me about it, and I was like, man, how cool is that? Like, Johnny Nansen gave you this idea, and you literally drew the turnover sword on a sticky note, and now your creation is in a video game. I just think that's so cool. But
that's awesome.
I also have an update on the footballs and the origin of that situation. I looked up the video of Julian Sabainea, celebrating with the turnover sword after last week's game. Those were Hawaii footballs. They had Hawaii logos on them. So I posed the question to Twitter just now, will Weber State be bringing extra footballs to Tucson to put on the turnover sword as to not have some sort of weird deficit? You know what I mean?
Or maybe Arizona throws them a bone and they're like, hey, guys, we know that you're going to throw a bajillion interceptions, and that's a real stat. They might actually throw a bajillion interceptions against Arizona, and we'll just have our own footballs on deck. But just, to quote Jaws, which is celebrating the 50th anniversary since it first released, you're going to need a bigger sword. You're going to need a bigger bow. You're going to need a bigger sword, because the turnover sword against the Oklahoma Sooners in the Alamo Bowl, they had 6 of them, and they got to a point where they're like, yo, the sword's like bending. We need to create some room here, man. So I think the max is probably 6. Anywhere outside of that, you're going to need a bigger sword, or you're going to need another sword. So we'll see.
And for all your more sword talk, keep it locked right here to the AZ Wildcats podcast, because we are your number one Arizona Wildcats sword-related podcast. But we're also going to talk a little bit more about the Big 12 landscape, what we saw in Week 1, and get Justin's official prediction for the Weber State game in Week 2. We'll get into that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats pod.
And, hopefully this will be a big old huge Arizona W this weekend, and you can help celebrate, turn up, or unwind with our friends over at Pure Edibles. No matter what the vibe you're trying to find, Pure Edibles has it for you. I just picked myself up a little bit of Pure Edibles.
Ryan from Pure Edibles just came into the office yesterday, Kevin. I got to shake his hand.
I was off
to meet him, chop it up. Unbelievable. People over there at Pure Edibles, just great folks.
That's what you get for not showing up to work literally every day, Damon. You miss out on meeting great people.
Some of us work 7 days this week, Kevin.
Some of us, not me though, but some of us. Pure Edibles was founded right here in Arizona, the Freedom State. And with your freedom, you can go to one of the over 130 dispensaries that dispense Pure Edibles. And you're wondering, what is a Pure Edible? Pure is a full-fledged candy company that just so happens to offer the fun stuff too. I'm talking CBN, CBD, and of course, marijuana-derived THC. So if you want to catch a vibe or unwind, whatever your get down is, Pure gummies are designed to be ripped, bit, or torn in half to make sharing or dialing in the perfect dose easy for you. Go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries that dispense them across the Freedom State of Arizona.
Kevin, another Valley staple that is actually a brand new sponsor of ours that we're super excited to be partnering with. One more time, brand new sponsor. There it is. We have our guys at Spencer's Appliances. They got 11 Valley locations and they're employee owned and operated with same day and next day delivery options available. Here's what we're going to hook you up with. PHNX5, code PHNX5 is going to get you 5% off on all appliances, or code PHNX10 is going to get you 10% off all TVs, audio equipment, and mattresses. We all know how expensive all of those products can be, whether it's electronics, appliances, a mattress. I mean, those are some of the biggest purchases that you will make for your home. Do it right. Do it with our guys at Spencer's. Like I said, they got 11 Valley locations. They are Arizona's largest independent appliance dealer, and it's like having a friend in the business. Visit spencerstv.com or any of their 11 Valley locations today. Kevin, I know you just moved. Anything that you're looking for in the new place?
I mean,
I'd say Spencer's probably has it. It's time to hit them up.
It definitely is. And I was just going to say, when we get back to the other scene, I was going to say, like, I could have used this discount code when I was moving a couple months ago, because it would have saved me a large chunk of change. 10% off on stuff like TVs, audio, and mattresses. That stuff ain't cheap, folks. So if you can get a discount any way you can, PHNX10 for 10% off. That's Spencer's order, Damon.
We are fired up about our new sponsor there. Fired up to have some new faces here in the chat, people that are just joining. Please like this video if you are just tuning into the stream now. We're going to be finishing out this discussion, talking about a little bit of just kind of our predictions for this Weber State game in Week 2. And then I wanted to just get Justin's thoughts on what we saw from the Big 12 as a whole before we get him on out of here. Very busy man, but Justin, it's as we've been talking about, it seems like it's going to be a very, kind of cushy win for the Wildcats here. And when I say the Wildcats, I mean the Arizona Wildcats, not the Weber State ones.
The good cats.
But yeah, should we expect a big time blowout from Arizona in this one?
Yeah, this should get ugly quick. And if it doesn't, then we've got some problems. But, I said that last week. If Arizona doesn't win by 3 touchdowns, then we should be concerned. They won by 34 points. So I feel pretty good that, my gut tells me that Arizona's going to win this game by, a lot. Like, I think that the spread is probably going to be like 34.5. And I probably take Arizona to cover. Like, I think that it's going to be that dominant of a game for the Arizona Wildcats. And by the way, did you guys know that the Weber State head coach, his name is Mickey Mental? Did you guys know that? Yeah. Mickey Mental is the head coach. I had to do a double take when I looked at that name. I'm like, Mickey Mental. And I even tweeted it earlier.
And our coach's name is Babe Roth.
Yeah.
I mean, we're one letter off. That's insane.
Yeah. When I said it, it sounds like a therapist whose stage name, it's the stage name of a therapist who really loves the Yankees. Mickey Mental. Like, I'm going to see Dr. Mental.
Yeah.
I got to visit with him on Friday. He's gonna, help me get my life together and stuff like that. But as far as the Weber State Wildcats, they have a quarterback by the name of Jackson Gilkey, who threw for 3 interceptions last week against James Madison. But he's also a dual threat quarterback, so he can get out and use his legs when he can. And Brent Brennan said it seems like everybody in the country's got one of those. Every team that we play has a dual threat quarterback and a guy that can run. And he's also like 6'2", 215 pounds. So he is a bigger quarterback. And so, yeah, they'll have to, pay attention to him if he gets out and running and stuff like that. But this team is just, I don't know. This Weber State team is just not good, man. I would like to say that they're going to be tested like North Dakota State a couple of weeks ago, right? Or not a couple weeks ago, a couple years ago. They faced some really good FCS opponents in the past, but this is just one of those teams where, Weber State, they might be towards the bottom of the Big Sky. That's how bad they are.
Yeah, even NAU is a pretty solid program, and they find themselves inside the top 25. I know Kevin and I were very much pumping up that Northern Arizona program after. I mean, how could Arizona State not move up in the rankings after a 19-point victory against such an absolutely
powerhouse
of an FCS team? But
I mean, real quick before we move on, I don't think we've said enough about NAU, Damon. What Coach Brian Wright has been able to do is nothing short of spectacular. Stupendous, must I say.
And beating them by 19 is an accomplishment as a program.
They do say NAU, they're the kingmakers of college football. So
Yeah.
if you can beat them by 20, you can beat anybody.
Justin, did you happen to see any of Kevin's extracurriculars on Twitter, on the Twitter streets? We did our Big 12 Power Rankings, our first rendition of the Big 12 Power Rankings going into week 2. And Kevin, and to his credit, knowing my guy Kevin, everyone thinks that he's being incendiary here, but I promise you he's not. He's as genuine as it gets. Kevin went ahead and dropped this bad boy on us. I think we should have it here in a
I'll have
second.
it in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, he went ahead and riled up the streets, Justin, in about the only way that he possibly could. I told him before the show, I said, this isn't going to end well for you. He said, I don't care. I'm going through with it. And this is what he went with for the Big 12 Power Rankings for the week.
Oh, man.
He dropped the Arizona State Sun Devils after their massive win over NAU.
Look at the face Justin's got stuck on.
and he bumped up the Wildcats above Arizona State.
To be fair, later I made
rankings.
I made an amendment and I moved BYU back to where I had them before. They don't need to move down after a 69-0 trouncing. I also, after many discussions, far too many discussions about the first week of the Big 12 football, I realized I shouldn't have had Baylor where I had them. I feel like my 2 biggest screw ups were Baylor and then that Colorado, Cincinnati, BYU group. I don't think it had anything to do with Arizona State, to be honest with you. I think people just want to be mad because they were like, oh, what's a power ranking? What's the AP ranking? What's a poll? Who is this guy?
Kevin took my baton, Justin, in terms of, turning on the proverbial flamethrower on Twitter with ASU fans. And he, it's just been a nasty, nasty war ever since. But, hey, guys like me and Kevin, we respect the hell out of that Northern Arizona Lumberjacks program that they got. And we understand that you can only move ASU up after such a momentous win. But obviously we're being very tongue in cheek. The Big 12 though has not looked all that great. I think you saw Iowa State has the big win against K-State. They follow it up with a huge W. Kansas has a blowout. Texas Tech has a blowout. Those were big results. Utah and TCU blowout, like legit competition. So I think a lot of people, are giving a lot of respect to those teams. And then you have on the other end of the spectrum, you have the Baylors who had a lot of hype, looking pretty poor against Auburn. K-State looking like scraping by North Dakota last week, almost losing their second game of the season. Colorado and Cincinnati playing decent teams, but not looking all that inspiring. What have you seen from the Big 12 thus far, Justin? And kind of what's, has it shocked you? Have they done it again as last season, where a lot of the teams with expectations are, maybe not looking so hot?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, just because it's only been really 1 week with all the teams playing. But I thought the Big 12 had an impressive showing this weekend. Now, like you mentioned, they didn't play against really good teams. Like Baylor played against Auburn, and Auburn, Jackson Arnold, he looks great. As a running quarterback, I didn't know he had those kind of wheels when he played against Arizona in the Alamo Bowl.
Just don't let him see a turnover sword, Justin. He sees a turnover sword, and all of a sudden he cowers in fear.
Mm-hmm. But Jackson Arnold looked great against Baylor. And Sawyer Robertson, their quarterback, Baylor's offense looked kind of shaky. And then you look at Sawyer Robertson's numbers, and the dude had well over 400 yards. And this is a big week for the Baylor Bears, just because, Dave Aranda was on the hot seat last year. And then they turned it up in the second half of the year. And then that hot seat conversation kind of went by the wayside. If they start 0-2, maybe the Dave Aranda hot seat starts heating up again. But I thought the Big 12 was impressive from top to bottom. Yeah, they had the slip-ups with Colorado leading up to it. But, man, Utah, welcome back, Utes, man. I know that UCLA is UCLA, but – man, the Utes really sent a message to everybody else in the Big 12. Like, you guys talk about Iowa State, you talk about Kansas State, you talk about ASU, but remember, we're still coached by Kyle Whittingham. We still have the Utah identity, and I thought that was on display against UCLA. So I look at Utah, I was very impressed with them, and I saw this stat, Opta Stats tweeted it on Saturday, that the Big 12 went 8-0 on Saturday, and they had an average margin of victory by like 34 points or something like that.
34.5 or something. I saw this too.
And it is the best single day for a FBS conference in 40 years. Now, I know they didn't play sexy teams, right? But, there's been a lot of football played in the last 40 years by all these different conferences. The fact that the Big 12 had the best day on Saturday, the best day in 40 years, it speaks to the depth that this conference has. So, and that's the reason why they went away from the Big 12 media poll. They're like, we're not going to create the narratives out there. We're just going to roll the ball out, let the best teams emerge to the top. And then we feel pretty good. And we feel that our quality in the depth that we have in the conference is going to show as the season progresses. And then the Big 12 might get maybe a couple teams in that CFP conversation.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm being a little bit unfair to the conference as a whole in saying that it was disappointing. Maybe I'm feeling that way because a lot of the teams that had disappointing showings are on Arizona's schedule. And so it's making me feel a little bit better about the Wildcats and their chances in the future here, because you look at a Kansas State, why isn't that game winnable all of a sudden? Because I think going into this season, a lot of Arizona fans would have told you that's one of the least winnable games on the schedule, given that Kansas State probably not going to have another down season. Avery Johnson, another year starting. Like, I think a lot of people thought Kansas State was maybe the cream of the crop in this conference. You look at a team like Colorado or Cincinnati that played decent teams, but didn't really look great in doing so, look very beatable. Baylor looks very beatable. Like, I do think that the schedule for Arizona after 1 week does look a lot lighter, though, than maybe it did, prior to this last weekend's results.
Oh, man, be careful, Damon. Be very careful, man. It's only a week. It's only a week, man. Let's have this conversation in 2 weeks, and then we'll see, what the Big 12 is going to be like.
It could be way less fun in 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Justin, do we think double-digit wins is on the table for this team right now?
CFP 26. We went 12-2 in this year. So, I mean, what's to stop us from doing it in real life, Justin? That's all I'm saying. Luke Weissong for Heisman.
I mean, listen, I'm not going to put it past Arizona. Like, I wouldn't deny Arizona winning double-digit games. I'm not putting my mortgage on it, but I just don't see that happening. And then I think that the Big 12 as a whole, I thought really sent a message Monday night when TCU went down to Chapel Hill and just handed it to North Carolina. Now, I didn't have high expectations for North Carolina, but the fact that Sonny Dykes, who, by the way, was Arizona's offensive coordinator in the 2000s, somewhere Nick Foles was rubbing his hands like Birdman, rubbing his hands menacingly because he's like, yes, I took down Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl, and my offensive coordinator at Arizona is embarrassing this guy on national TV on Monday Night Football. And Sonny Dykes even said it after the game. He's like, no one talked about us. We have this great quarterback in Josh Hoover who passed for a lot of yards last year and looked pretty damn good. And no one was talking about TCU going into that game. And then when Bud Clark got that interception, I think it was a pick six, if I'm not mistaken, that pick six, that really just kickstarted that avalanche by TCU. And I think TCU sent a message. I think that Iowa State has sent a message going across the pond and beating Kansas State and then coming back and playing, one of the upper tier FCS programs in South Dakota and just mollywhopping them. Like they took it to South Dakota. And then, you have some other, teams as well that looked pretty impressive. So I don't know how many teams are going to go to the college football playoff. And I do worry, are we going to see the Big 12 cannibalize itself?
Absolutely.
Right? They're just beating each other up every single week. And it's going to create all sorts of chaos for the CFP poll and the projections and stuff like that. So all in all, Big 12, I am a big fan of this league. I think it's a great conference. We all talk about the depth when it comes to basketball. But as far as football, I mean, 1 through 16, I can make an argument it's the best conference in college football.
Yeah, and, to your point, I mean, I guess to both of your points earlier, right, Justin, kind of talking about how the actual body of the week that was produced by the Big 12 was pretty damn impressive. But Damon, your point, I think, is also very fruitful as well. That the aftertaste we had as Big 12 fans coming out of this week was not as sweet as maybe it should have been based on that, statistic about, being 8-0 and beating teams the worst out of anybody in the last 40 years. It was like, and take a drink, MMA mentioned, it was like watching a pay-per-view card, and then the first 8 fights are absolute bangers or instant knockouts, and then the main event is a snoozer. Yep. Right? You leave thinking, oh man, that fight night was kind of it was good. But 30 minutes ago you were like, dude, this is the card of the year. Nothing could ever be better than this. And so I feel like that was kind of the Big 12's weekend, right? You get through those 8 games of whooping on who you're supposed to whoop on, but then there are some real outlier performances that you look at a lot more because, like you alluded to this whole season so far, Damon, you gain nothing from beating up on these tiny teams. If you lose to them, you're frauds. If you beat them, congratulations, you did what you were supposed to do. It's a lose-lose, right? So we're paying more attention to the disappointing performances as opposed to paying attention to the teams doing what they were supposed to do. So it was kind of like a bittersweet weekend for the Big 12, and it feels like they will cannibalize, but it will level itself out at some point. The performances, at least.
I agree. I've got nothing to add to that.
Yeah,
I do have to jet though, guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate you though.
We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on.
Mr. Justin Spears. As always, he is the man. Follow Justin Spears at Justin E Sports on Twitter. Also, Spears and Ali every weekday morning, 7 to 9 a.m. And on, Tucson.com for the Arizona Daily Star. Justin, he's everywhere, as always. We'll catch you next week, Justin. Get your thoughts on the next game and preview Kansas State.
Luke Weissong for Heisman. That's all I'm going to say.
Luke Weissong for Heisman are his final words. Kevin, we did have a couple quick notes to get to before we get out of here today. I think, just to kind of wrap up that conversation, you said it's a lose-lose. It almost popped in my head. Like, it's not even a lose-lose. It's almost just like a lose neutral. It's like a lose, we don't care. Like, it's like you win, Literally no one cares at all. Texas Tech, congrats, man. You beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 67-0. Literally no one is taking any stock into that. But, maybe you beat NAU by 19 and people start raising some eyebrows going, is that really the number 11th ranked team in the country?
No.
I think we maybe drop them down to 12.
And that meant the world.
Yes. I do think it's interesting. I have some teams here that Arizona avoids on their schedule. As I mentioned, that a lot of the teams that had poor weeks or disappointing weeks are on Arizona's schedule. Utah, Texas Tech, TCU, all not on Arizona's schedule. Big time W's on those ones, Kevin. 3 programs that look like they could be the cream of the crop in the conference this year. Three teams that are really well coached, seemingly, and then they also avoid UCF and West Virginia, which does stink because those are 2 of the bottom feeders. So you're playing a lot of the middle teams, I think. The way that kind of gets brought up, but in terms of the cannibalizing itself portion, that's bound to happen.
Yeah.
The Big 12 will get 1 playoff team. It absolutely will cannibalize itself. The bottom tier teams are just too good, and that could be detrimental to your conference from time to time. But I expect a really fun, well put together season, all things considered.
I'm with you, Damon, and that was a nice bow to put on that conversation. Wrapping this show up today with some news and notes. I'm going to keep this one quick. Arizona women's basketball, Becky Burke. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to say it 1,000 more times. As long as she's the coach of Arizona women's basketball, she continues to build, folks.
Brick by brick.
People go band for band. She's going brick for brick. Becky Burke is building. And Blessing Adebanyo has joined the squad, the 6'3", forward from Lagos, Nigeria, via Japan. Damon, quite the international superstar we have here on our hands. We can talk a little bit more about this when it gets closer to women's basketball season. We can talk to Erica Day for more breakdown on these players. But the thing I wanted to talk about most, we got Blessing Adebanyo on the team.
What a name. Hall of names.
Hall of names. But what about this one? Miracle Akpatayobo.
Yeah.
We got a Blessing and a Miracle on the team. And that is, and I was saying this.
Good luck.
And I was saying this
Good luck.
in the production office this morning. Will Arizona women's basketball lose a game, or will that be sacrilegious? You got a Blessing and a Miracle on your team. You're telling me you're going to lose?
The 2023 Arizona Wildcats were carried by Genesis and Ephesians. I will have you know.
We got Leviticus on the squad right now.
And Leviticus, true.
Dude, I'm just saying, folks. We got a Blessing and a Miracle.
This is
Arizona
the Lord's
basketball.
athletic department is all we're trying to say.
You've reached the miracle department. Becky Burke speaking. But yeah, that was my.
Meanwhile, you got the Devils as well.
Which side do you really want to represent, guys?
Just saying.
Moving on. Arizona, last note on that. Arizona now has 6 players listed at 6'2" or taller on their women's basketball roster, which is the size is palpable there. And then last thing I want to talk about today, Damon, and this is one that really had me doing one of these yesterday.
Yeah.
Not even one of these. Because
the hater in you is he has risen, Kevin, to keep it on the topic of what we're talking about right now. The hater in you is just there's tears in my eyes formulating as I talk about it. I'm getting emotional. It's like,
what was it like watching Kevin turn to a hater?
I'm watching my sweet baby boy grow up. It was special. Kevin, take it away.
Look, the Big 12 has done away with preseason polls, and in part because ASU made them look silly last year. And I think you and I, Damon, we talked about it a lot off air, some on air, about how people outside of Tucson, people outside of the state of Arizona that don't have any rooting interest in this beef between ASU and U of A, they kind of just want Arizona State to be good at football, whether or not, and they are good at football this year. I'm not trying to say that they're not, but what I am saying is that people want it. They're want it bad. They want to project it out there before it's even happened. And the Big 12 has added a new award to what they're doing this year. And that award is the student section of the year. And you're like, Kevin, how are you going to do a student section of the year? It's week 1. Well, similar to our awards tracker that we're doing on a post-game show every time, they're tracking it throughout the week. And whoever gets the most student sections of the week is the student section of the year. And you might be like, well, there were probably some incredible performances from student sections across the Big 12.
Did you see Texas Tech?
I didn't see
It was
Texas
a
Tech.
madhouse out there
Wow.
in Lubbock this week.
I'm sure it was. A lot of hype around that program right now. Maybe no more hype around that program than any other program in the conference. But I guess the inaugural student section of the week has gone to the Inferno of Arizona State because they set a record with 14,280 students in attendance as they defeated NAU 38-19. And Damon, ordinarily I wouldn't even.
LeBron gif moving back, doing that at the ref.
I wouldn't even bring this up if it wasn't for the most notable thing that the student section did this past weekend, which was get into a fight. And then that fight go viral on social media.
Well, dude was using his girlfriend as a shield for a portion of said fight.
Hopefully Kobe's not watching because his replies probably gave him some PTSD. You know what I mean?
He's been talking about a tweet that pops off. And Kobe, like, I'll attest to this as a guy who's had a tweet that like reached like 4 million, and I think that one's reached like 5 million.
Yeah, he getting monetized.
It really hits you out of nowhere. Like you're sitting there and it's just like you doing your everyday stuff, and for some reason Twitter's just like, we like this one, and they put it in everyone's algorithm forever. And then you got to mute the thread, or else your mentions are just on fire 24/7. But
to your point, though, Damon, I think that tweet that you're referencing, where it was the baseball tweet about the Diamondbacks not having a chance to win the division, like before the season even started. I remember vividly us having this conversation. You were like, "Dude, when I went to bed last night, tweet was doing crazy, had like 800,000 views. I wake up this morning, it's got like 3 million views, and I didn't know where the hell they came from."
I think it went from like 100K to 3 million. But yeah,
it was nuts.
Same point. But Kevin, not even the only viral video from ASU's student section this past week. Did you happen to see the other one?
There was no.
Here's I'll go ahead and reenact this other one. You are the interviewer.
I did see this one.
I am the ASU student.
Okay. Oh, we got a student at the game. How are we feeling? What are the vibes like? Student at the game?
Doesn't matter.
All right, that's all good. I get it. Vibes don't matter. We're here to watch some football. Is Arizona State going to win a football game today?
Doesn't matter.
Is Sam Levitt a good quarterback?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
The whole interview, Kevin, doesn't matter.
I did see that.
They were like, what is it called when the quarterback and receiver connect on a pass?
Doesn't matter.
And he's falling all over himself. This is your student section of the week. This is your king.
I
feel
like
free,
I said,
I guess. It's what you're saying, Kevin, and I'll just come out and say it. It's not even a conspiracy anymore. The fully, it's like an industry plant situation with Kenny Dillingham. They want Arizona State football to be on top. So they will just push that on us until they are, or until the world perceives them as such. We disagree. And we're truth tellers on this podcast, and we're going to keep telling you the truth. Student section of the week in our personal record book, AZ Wildcats podcast record book,
nope.
Texas Tech. Congratulations, Texas Tech. You are week 1 student section of the week. Come on,
it's tortilla time. Bring it. We throwing tortillas in here. That'd be funny. That'd be fun. We have like Derek throw tortillas at us. That'd be sweet.
Maybe for when ASU plays Texas Tech later this year. But that is going to do it for the AZ Wildcats podcast today. We will be back on a Football Friday at 2 p.m. Boom. Can't wait for that show. We'll be giving you our full Weber State game preview, breaking down who has the positional advantage between Arizona and Weber State tomorrow. You're going to want to tune in to find out that one. And, of course, tune in just for the general banter. You can follow me at Damon Dog. You can follow him at Kevo Post. And you can follow us at PHNX_Wildcats and PHNX_Sports on Twitter. Appreciate everybody for being here. Drop a like on this video if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel, rate and review on your audio podcast of choice. And we will see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. on the AZ Wildcats pod. Until then, peace out. Bear down.
And go Cats. Luke Weissong for Heisman. Luke Weissong for Heisman.
We all silly like the mayor.